Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for joining me on this TV show. Let's have some fun.
Judge Randolph presiding. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Please be seated. Thank you. Is there anything to take up before we call the jury out?
I don't believe so.
Because the court is going to inform the jury of the schedule. We can bring the jury out.
Go mute myself.
Would counsel stipulate, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
The court is going to advise you of what the schedule will be for the next couple of days. Tomorrow, we will not be in session. Monday is a state holiday. We will not be in session. So Friday and Monday, we will not be in session. And we will resume on Tuesday. The state continues with its case this morning.
Yes, Your Honor. The state would call Mark News to the stand. May I approach the clerk, Your Honor?
Yes.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or solemnly and sincerely affirm as the case may be that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Mark, M-A-R-K, Newth, N-E-W-T-H.
Mr. Newth, you may be seated.
Thank you.
You may inquire to any matter.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. By whom are you employed?
I'm employed at the State of Connecticut Forensic Science Laboratory in Meriden, Connecticut.
Are you in a particular division or department of the forensic lab?
For the last 12 years, I have been in the Computer Crimes and Electronic Evidence Lab.
What kinds of things does the Computer Crimes and Evidence Lab do?
We examine data from electronic devices, primarily cell phones, computers, laptops, tablets, things like that.
Can you please describe to the jury some of your educational background and training and experience that qualifies you to do that?
Yeah, sure. I started forensic science training or digital evidence training in 2012. And I did things like certification in NCASE, which is one of the primary forensic tools, certification in FTK forensic toolkit. I did advanced Windows forensics, advanced Macintosh forensics. In 2015, I got certifications in all the cell phone forensics, Celebrate, certified forensic examiner. And then as pertaining to this case in 2017, I went to an extensive school regarding the Burla Ivy Vehicle Forensics, and I was certified as a vehicle forensics examiner in 2017, I think that was.
If you can just explain a little bit about what vehicle forensics is.
Well, vehicle forensics is similar to cell phone forensics. Most vehicles that are manufactured today have a lot of computers in them, but they have a particular computer that's identified as the infotainment system. And people are able to synchronize their cell phones with the infotainment system. And also they use it for GPS coordinates when you're traveling. And these vehicles can record valuable GPS data as your vehicle's in motion. And they also download data from your cell phones and store that as well. So in terms of law enforcement investigations, there can be valuable evidence on these infotainment systems. So software has been created to download and retrieve this evidence and examine it primarily for law enforcement applications.
What is some of the software?
Well, the primary tool is from a company called Burla, and the software is called Ivy, IVE. And that's been around for a while, and it's the industry standard really for vehicle forensics now. And we use the Burla Ivy system to extract vehicle data and then interpret it and analyze it.
And have you been trained in the Burla system?
Yes, I have.
Now, if you could walk through exactly how that extraction process works.
Well, yeah, sure. Every vehicle system is different. It depends on the manufacturer, and some manufacturers utilize multiple systems. So it depends what system is in the vehicle. There are systems where we can just go to the vehicle with a jump drive and plug the jump drive into the vehicle, and we can download the data right from the vehicle. But that's fairly rare. Most vehicles, what we have to do is we actually have to go in and physically remove the infotainment system from the car. Then we usually give it to the law enforcement agency that pulled the warrant, and they submit it to the forensic lab for analysis and examination. Then when I get the infotainment system at the lab, usually there's two methods primarily for the data extraction. One, the system could contain a hard drive, and that's usually the easiest way. I can remove the hard drive from the system, attach it through right blocking to my forensic computer, and I can do the extraction using the Ivy software. Other systems don't have a hard drive. They have a memory chip physically attached to a motherboard within the system. So what we need to do is remove the motherboard and attach what we call a DIB board to the motherboard, and then some wires to the DIB board so that we can make a connection between the computer and the infotainment module. And then using the software, we can then do the data extraction.
With respect to the data extraction, how and what types of data are you able to get from an infotainment center?
Well, there's primarily two types of data, two categories. There's cell phone related data, or what we call connected devices. Any type of physical electronic device that connected to that system, usually either through a Bluetooth connection, which is a wireless connection, or through a USB connection with a physical USB wire. The second type of data is the GPS data. The main difference is GPS data is generated by the vehicle system itself as the vehicle is traveling. The cell phone data generally comes from the cell phones. Whenever you synchronize the cell phone to the system, it downloads the data from the cell phones. And that is so that the vehicle user, has their contacts and their phone call history available to them in the system if they want to make a call. Most people I've seen that because they have these types of systems in their car and they've used them to make phone calls. So those are the two types of data: cell phone data, which generally comes from the phone, and GPS data, which comes from the car system itself.
With the cell phone data, is the infotainment center able to reach in and I guess the question is get as much data, or what information can they get from the phone?
It's usually phone call related data. Like, it's not going to go into your Facebook app or your social media or any stuff like that. It only retrieves phone call data. So most systems, you get your phone call history, so that you know who your recent phone calls were. You can touch your touch screen and go to recent calls and call back someone who just called you, right? And it also will record your contacts. So any contacts that in your device will get downloaded, so you can do voice call and say, you know, call Aunt Sarah or whatever it might be. So primarily it's phone call data. Some systems do record text message data, but not all systems.
So not all systems. Are all systems different? Does it matter the make, model, and
Oh,
your
it
car?
matters a lot. The data set that we get from vehicles can vary depending on what infotainment system is present in that vehicle. Yeah.
Is there is the data recorded and saved?
Yeah, well, every system's different. Some systems save things longer, but for the most part, the systems consider this data, especially the GPS data, they consider this data disposable. It's not, the user doesn't have access. You can't like go into the user interface and recover your data. It's not designed to do that. The data is considered disposable. So after the vehicle's shut off from a trip, most of the data is commonly marked for deletion. Now, even though it's marked for deletion, the data can still be present on the drive and we can retrieve it. It doesn't disappear until it actually gets what we call overwritten or replaced by new data that's being stored. Does that make sense?
You mentioned when the car gets shut off, the data gets deleted. Does that happen every time the car gets shut off?
Well, again, it depends on the systems. Some systems might do that. Other systems might save it longer. Every system, it not only depends on the system, it can also depend on the firmware version that system is running. You know, all these systems run on software, and all these softwares are constantly updated with new software. And the new software can even change how things are done when an update is installed. So it's a question that's hard to answer.
As the data is saved, is it saved in any sort of sequence or time sequence?
Well, the data is, like GPS data is saved immediately as it occurs. Where it's saved onto the drive in terms of what sectors is a kind of random. That's determined by, these devices have what's called a wear leveling algorithm for the most part. And I don't mean to be confusing with that. What it simply means is computer hard drives can wear out over time. And computer hard drives are made up of sectors. They have thousands of tiny little sectors like pockets. And the data is broken up and saved a little bit into each sector. And what happens over time is these sectors can wear out or get damaged. And so what all the wear leveling app does is spread out the use of these sectors to try and make them last longer to prolong the life of the device. That's all it does. So where the data is saved is determined by wear leveling usually.
Now, if the data is saved in the different sectors, does that factor into how it is overwritten over time, if I'm using that term correctly?
Yes, because when the device overwrites, it decides on what sectors to utilize for writing the new data, often based on the wear leveling algorithm.
So is it safe to say that when you are able to download information, particularly with respect to GPS tracking, you may not be able to get as much information as, or
right,
completed
depending on the
information?
system. Some systems overwrite more frequently than other systems, but yes, data can be overwritten. And once the data is overwritten, it's lost to us. So sometimes the data set can be patchy with timeframes missing from it.
What is the difference between a extraction using the IVE or Burla system that you described and a chip off?
Well, chip off is a different method. And chip off can be done with anything, not just a vehicle. Cell phones, you can do a chip off. What chip off means is simply that you physically remove the chip from the motherboard and you attach it to another device to try and extract the memory from it, extract the data from it. The chip off method, the difference is that the chip off method is destructive. I mean, once you remove that chip from that motherboard, you've basically ruined that, fixing it. So we try to avoid using chip off. If we're able to use the burla, we prefer to use it because the device can then be reinstalled in the vehicle and returned to use.
Did you utilize the Burla system in evaluating vehicles owned by Fotis Dulos and Jennifer Dulos in 2019?
Yes, I did.
Did you or somebody from the lab actually remove the infotainment center from the vehicles?
Yes, in this case,
Fine, no, so
myself
doing
and
this.
one of my colleagues, Jennifer Hernandez Ortiz, went out to I believe the vehicles were at New Canaan PD, if I remember correct. We went to New Canaan PD and physically removed the infotainment systems from the vehicles, turned them over to the police detectives to submit to the lab.
I want to ask you a couple questions about a Ford Raptor owned by Fotis Dulos. Did you remove the infotainment center from the Ford Raptor?
Yes, either myself or my colleague removed it. We were both present. And we removed it and then later examined it.
It was submitted to the lab for request for analysis.
Yes, it was.
Did you utilize the chip off or the Burla method?
We utilized the Burla method.
And were you able to obtain GPS data off of that Burla? Well, let me withdraw that and just ask you, what do you call the end result? Is it a Burla report, or is there a name for the report after you are able to download the information?
I call it a data extraction.
Data extraction?
We were able to create a data extraction of that infotainment system from the F-150 Raptor, and we were able to analyze the data from that extraction.
Was there GPS information or data within that data extraction?
Yes, there was some, yeah.
By some, what do you mean by that?
Well, listen, it's amazing the difference you can get from some of these systems. Sometimes I know a GPS that's so complete, I know everywhere that vehicle was for an entire 24-hour period.
Cool.
And sometimes you get data that's more patchy because the data may be missing because of overwriting or other reasons. So this was a case where we got some GPS data, but we have patches in time that are missing.
With a Ford Raptor, that make and model of a vehicle, are there different types of infotainment centers?
Well, yeah, Ford uses a system that they designed. It's manufactured by another company, but they designed it. It's called the Sync system. And there's 3 generations of Ford Sync system that you can find in Ford vehicles. And they're just simply called Sync Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3.
What is the difference between Gen 1, Gen 2, and Gen 3?
Well, capabilities, data storage. I mean, each generation improved upon the last in terms of the thing's capabilities, its memory storage, and its data storage.
What sync gen or generation, was, and I'm probably butchering how to say this, but what was the Ford Raptor that you examined?
Yeah, Fotis Dulos had a 2014 Ford Raptor, and it contained a Sync Gen 2 infotainment system.
So let's talk about the Sync Gen 2 infotainment center or system. What were the capabilities that you were able to download from that system?
That system contained, like I said, some GPS data, but it was spotty. Some of it was missing, probably due to overwriting or other factors. And it contained phone call history, connected device, a list of connected devices, and it contained contacts, phone contacts.
Now, as it's stored information, was it stored in real time or UTC time?
On this, it can be, sometimes the devices report in local time, sometimes they report in UTC. Fotis Dulos's vehicle displayed times in UTC.
You can just explain what UTC is, please.
Yeah, UTC is basically time zone 0 in Greenwich, England. It used to be called Greenwich Mean Time, but it means it's the initial time zone. And you would convert the time zone based on what time zone you're currently in. You would convert the time zone from UTC or Greenwich Mean Time. Like in the summertime here in Connecticut, New York time zone, we would be -4 hours from UTC. That's what the time is in basically London, England.
Is that a time frame that is used throughout digital devices?
It's commonly used, yeah.
Did you examine the GPS data that came out of the Ford Raptor in 2019?
Yes, I did.
By the way, can I ask you, the result of this data extraction, how big was it?
Oh, it's huge. It's over 1,000 pages, I'm sure. When we create a PDF report of the entire extraction, it's quite large.
Oh, did you take that information and examine whether or not there were the GPS, I guess, track logs? Is that what they're called?
Yes, there's a couple different ways you can get a GPS point of data. The primary one is called a tracking log. A tracking log is data that the vehicle is recording as it's moving, about where it is and how fast it's going and things like that. The other can be called a vehicle event, they call it. Like some vehicles might record when you step on the brakes, when you shift the gear shift, when you open the door. And when it records a vehicle event like that, it will often mark the GPS coordinates of where that occurred.
Did you examine the Ford Raptor for May 23rd and May 24th, 2019 in their, the GPS, either track logs or any form of GPS data extraction?
Yes, I did. That was the time frame of interest that investigators gave to us. And so that's the time frame that we concentrated on for the data.
Were you able to get a continuous point of track for all the times that extracted data point showed?
No, unfortunately not. We got a spotty data set, we call it, meaning that portions of the time frame were missing or not present.
Was that because of the deletion and overwriting that had been occurring?
Well, in this case, it's probably related to two reasons. Number one is overwriting, which is commonly happens. And number two, when I did this data extraction, I got an error message that indicated that there were bad sectors on this drive, meaning that this drive was already starting to wear out a little bit, and some of the sectors could not be read. So whatever data was in those sectors that were determined to be bad, that's data that was also lost.
Could a user manually go in and change the location data or GPS coordinates?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. Did you create a report kind of simplifying the GPS data for this
Yes,
case?
I always do that because looking at the GPS data in a PDF sheet with just a bunch of coordinates is confusing. So usually what I do is I just copy out portions of the map with the GPS dot points on it. And I create a PDF report of that so that it's much simpler for everyone to understand.
If I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
Actually. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sure, I'm gonna show you what's been marked as states 129 for ID. If you could take a minute and take a look at that document.
Sure.
What is that document, sir?
This is the PDF report that I created relating to the GPS data from the dates 5/23/19 and 5/24/19 of the F-150 Raptor.
Does it contain all the data points with respect to the GPS data extraction that you were able to pull from the Burla report?
Yes, it contains all recovered GPS data from those dates.
Are there times missing that are not, it's not a continuous 24 hours, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
But is that because that's the only data that you did receive?
Yes, I mean, all we can report on is the data that we're able to retrieve.
And at the bottom of the PDF, does it also have the data points for that you actually?
Yeah, at the end of this PDF, I actually pasted in all of the data points as they appeared in the Burla Ivy software so that they could be reviewed if anybody needed to see that.
State would offer it at this time, Your Honor.
What's the number, please?
129.
May I go to you?
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
It's my understanding that this is a document you created from what was essentially computer data that you downloaded off the vehicle, the Ford Raptor, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
There are maps in this particular exhibit. Did you create those maps?
No, those maps display in the Berla Ivy software, and I just cut and pasted them into the document.
Were there more than the ones that are in what you were just shown for that time frame?
Not for this time frame. I believe I displayed every point of data from this time frame.
From when the time frame would be from May 23rd through May 24th, correct?
Yeah, I can't remember now if they asked me for earlier in the day, May 23rd. I think it might have been the evening of May 23rd through the day of the 24th.
So you're not sure when they asked you to start?
Yeah, I can't remember if I remember them asking me for the evening. I don't remember if there were earlier. No, I don't think there were earlier timeframes, but I would have to double check in terms of the 23rd.
Right, and I just want to ask you, there are some red dots and some green dots that have been entered. Were those in that color as it was downloaded out of the system?
Yes, correct. I didn't change any color.
And just so I'm understanding before this comes in, do these dots represent geographical coordinates?
Yes, they do.
Is there a range for these coordinates?
No, it's pretty specific. There's no range.
When I say range, I mean, for example, if I were to stand with, let's say, a cell phone, it has geolocation as well, right?
Yes, it does.
But sometimes if I'm watching it on like Find My Device, it might move around a bit. That's what I mean by a range. Is there
Yeah.
10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet?
Oh, I see. You're asking for the accuracy range?
Yes.
The different types of location data that can be retrieved from cell phones or infotainment systems, there's a couple different types. You can get location data from cell towers, that's usually less accurate. The most accurate type of location data is data that comes from satellite. This data comes from satellite, and they say that it's accurate within, I think, like 16 feet is the analysis.
That was
in
going to be, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh,
interrupt.
that's enough? You don't want me to?
First,
No,
we
go
have
ahead.
to understand that this is voir dire.
Right, I'm trying to understand the accuracy of this.
Well,
whether-
that's cross-examination.
I'm just trying to, so the location that's on here, this isn't something you added, correct?
Correct. This is straight from the Ivy software data extraction.
But it's only approximate, the dots are only approximate to the location, correct?
In my experience, it's pretty specific. I mean, it's going to be accurate within a few feet.
When you say a few, do you mean 16 to 20 feet?
Well, 16 is the rule, but I mean, I've done cases where I've put GPS points in specific parking spaces and parking lots, and we've pulled the video from that parking lot, and you can see the car drive into the exact parking space that it parked in. So in my experience, I've done a lot of these extractions. I found this data to be pretty specific, pretty accurate.
Right, but as far as this document is concerned, you're still indicating that you don't know whether it's approximate or specifically pinpoint as far as this document. is
Your Honor, I'm
concerned,
objecting at this point.
This is not voir dire.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
This is not voir dire. How accurate are the coordinates is not the subject of voir dire.
Well, I believe the accuracy of the map would be relevant to what here. That's my reason for the voir dire.
The accuracy of the map is relevant to cross-examination.
Let me just have a moment. Well, with the caveat that I mentioned, I don't have any objection.
What is the Exhibit number, please.
129, Your Honor.
States 129, admitted as quote.
Thank you. May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, do you have the document in front of you?
Yes,
If I may. Actually, sir, if you can either see the screen in front of you or actually, would you mind, Your Honor, may I just ask him to stand up by
Yes.
the, sir, would you mind taking a step in behind you and pointing to the screen?
Mhm.
Thank you. Is this the document that you created?
Yes, it is.
Now, the top line, the 5/23/2019, what does that indicate?
Yeah, this is right.
And that's May 23rd, 2019.
Right.
4:52 PM, 5:05, and 5:09 to 5:10 at Fort Jefferson Crossing. Could you just explain that line in connection with the maps below? And I'm going to move it up just a little bit to show the whole page.
You can see that the vehicle's parked here behind this house. And in here you can see that the vehicle moved. The blue line indicates the movement of the vehicle from.
Now, you have a couple times up here, 4:25, 5:05. Which dots are related to the times?
This would be the first one and then the second one.
And 5/24/2019 at 7:55 AM at a house at 27 Spring Lane in Simsbury. Can you please explain what that map shows?
There's a location of the vehicle parked in front of a home. And Google Maps showed that home to be 27 Spring Lane, Simsbury.
And the bottom photograph, please.
Later that morning, we're at 9:53 AM. And the house is, it's now at a house in New Canaan, Connecticut. And that is 61 Sturbridge Hill Road, New Canaan.
Between 7:55 AM at Simsbury and 9:53 AM at Sturbridge Hill Road in New Canaan, do you have any GPS data tracking between those time periods?
No, these two time periods were continuous. The next point of data was 9:53 AM in New Canaan.
And the next page, sir.
Okay, so later that afternoon, you can see we're now at 4:21 PM, and that's local time. The vehicle's traveling on Route 84 through the town of Plainville.
Now, this is all the Ford Raptor, correct?
Yeah, this is the Ford F-150 Raptor.
Now, between 12:30 PM in Sturbridge Hill Road in New Canaan and 4:21 PM on Interstate 84 in Plainville, did the Berlin system give you any data GPS tracking points for that time period?
No, those time frames are not present.
And that just means it could have been overwritten or damaged in any way?
Objection, meetings.
Well, there's already been testimony that overwriting or damaged sectors can contribute to spotty data. Overruled.
And sir, was there damaged sectors found in the Ford Raptor infotainment center that you received?
Yes, there was.
The bottom map, please.
At 4:32 PM, a GPS point is recorded at a gas station on Route 4 in Farmington, Connecticut.
And by the way, this gives you no information about the driver or who is operating the vehicle or?
No, I know nothing about who might be occupying it.
And the next page, sir, if you will.
At 5:03 to 5:05 PM, there's a track log showing the vehicle moving along Eli Road in Farmington, in the area of Talcott Notch Road.
And the bottom map, I'm sorry, I'll move it up.
At 5:38 to 6 p.m., the vehicle is back at 4 Jefferson Crossing.
And the next page, sir.
At 7:48 p.m., there's one GPS point of data showing the vehicle on Albany Avenue in Hartford, right near the intersection of Adams Street.
Now between, I think it's 6 p.m. at 4 Jefferson Crossing and 7:48 p.m. on Albany Avenue, did you have any data sets that were able to be obtained from the Burla system?
No. No,
After-
that data is missing.
You have, if you could read the next one, sir, please.
Yeah, this was one of the longer track logs that was able to be retrieved at 7:48 p.m. to 7:55 p.m. The vehicle drives from Albany Avenue in Hartford down Albany Avenue to Bishop's Corner in West Hartford. And it enters a plaza there. I believe that's Crown Market and Starbucks Plaza at Bishop's Corner.
And the next one, please.
Can you move it up a little?
Oh, I apologize.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now we're up to 8:08 to 8:10 p.m. There's one data set of a track log driving along Deer Cliff Road near Farmington, West Hartford. I'm not sure exactly which town that's in. Right near the border, I think.
And the last one, sir, if you could.
Yeah, at 8:14 p.m., the vehicle is shown moving along the side of the house at 4 Jefferson Crossing.
And at the bottom of the page, could you just explain what that is?
These are the data points, the track logs that I use to create this document, as they're copied right out of the Burla software.
Now, sir, they are indicated the word recovered, for instance, the first line, recovered 0035. What does that mean?
Recovered means that it was marked as deleted, but the software was able to recover it because it wasn't overwritten. 035 is the number of that track log that was assigned to it by the software when that track log was created.
And over, if you follow that line all the way over, you have the word adjusted EST. What does that mean?
These timeframes were displayed in UTC again, and they had to be adjusted -4 hours to correct them to Eastern time.
And just the last page, sir.
Again, this is up to the last track log that was used there at number 52.
And was this data part of that 1,000 pages that
Yes.
came out of that report?
Yes, it's in there, yeah.
You can have a seat. Thank you very much. Sir, was there also a time that you reviewed or examined a 2017 Chevy Suburban?
Yes, there was.
When was that?
That was around the same time frame as this. It was in May of 2019.
Did you remove the infotainment center out of that device or that car?
Yes, again, me and my associate went and removed the infotainment system.
Did you process that at the lab using the same process, the Burla
Yes,
software?
the exact same process, yeah.
And were you able to recover any data from the 2017 Chevy Suburban?
Yes, we did get some data.
How much data were you able to obtain?
We obtained quite a bit of connected devices and phone data, but not very much GPS data in that extraction.
Were you able to obtain any GPS data for May 24th, 2019?
No, not from the Chevy Suburban.
With respect to phone data, what were you able to determine? Well, Let me just ask it generally. What kind of phone data were you able to get from the 2017 Chevy Suburban?
We were able to get a list of connected devices with a display of local time, dates and times. We were able to retrieve a lot of phone contacts and phone call history.
By phone call history and phone contacts, were you able to reach into that device to determine whose device it was?
We got very limited data to determine whose device is what. We get the cell phone's name. You know, usually when you set up your cell phone, owners have the option of typing in a name. And we get the unique identifier that Burla uses is the Bluetooth MAC address. So we usually get the Bluetooth MAC address of all the devices.
You could just explain what a Bluetooth MAC address is.
Oh, sure. Whenever a device connects through Bluetooth, the system needs a way to synchronize the devices. And like computers use IP addresses when you're connecting to the internet, Bluetooth connects through what's called a Bluetooth MAC address. It's a unique number to each, assigned to each Bluetooth device so that they can communicate with each other.
And is that unique name or number, is that
We'll call
associated
it a
with the
number.
device, or is that associated with the infotainment center Bluetooth? I just
Well, both devices contain Bluetooth, so both the infotainment center and the cell phone will have a Bluetooth MAC address.
Did you utilize that same IVE report or Burla system that you discussed earlier with the 2017 Chevy Suburban?
Yes, I did.
If I may, I'm going to show you what's been marked as states 130.
Yep.
Your Honor, I don't think there's any objection, but if I may, I would move 130 into evidence if I may inquire.
States 130 admitted as full.
Sir, I'm handing you states 130. If you could just explain what that document is, please.
This is a portion of the data extraction that I performed from the 2017 Chevy Suburban in relation to this case.
You indicated with the Ford Raptor, it was thousands of pages. How much was it with the Chevy Suburban?
It might not have been quite as big, but I'm sure it was still pretty large.
And if you can, sir, what information is obtained from that document?
This document relates specifically to connected or attached devices, devices that attach to the system via Bluetooth.
If I may publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
So I'm gonna ask you to do the same thing and you can stand next to the TV if you can, and I can ask you some questions about the states 130. And what we're looking at here.
This is the Ivy report. This is the lab case number for this, and the vehicle description 20 Chevrolet Suburban, 2017 Chevrolet Suburban.
And there's on the, let me zoom in a little bit. Is this a lot of the technical information that came out of the Burla report?
Yes.
And down here, sir, Canon. That was way too far. All right, well, before I break the envelope, I'm gonna move on. All right, it's page 2, sir. If I may just ask, since you're on. What is I may, Your Honor. All right. If I may, Your Honor. Thank you. Sir, if you could take a look at page 2, we have attached devices. What does that mean?
Those are the devices that have attached themselves to this infotainment system via Bluetooth.
Now, the first line down at the bottom, I don't know if you could see, it says embedded device. What does that mean?
That's the infotainment system itself. And if you see over here where it says unique number Bluetooth address, that's the Bluetooth MAC address of the infotainment system itself.
And the line under it that reads iPhone, what is that?
This is a device that connected to the system, iPhone, connected via Bluetooth. This is the Bluetooth MAC address of that specific iPhone model.
Now, does this iPhone have a name or a contact person associated with it?
It's just called iPhone.
And at what time or day was it paired with the Chevy Suburban Infotainment Center? And I should actually, as I say that, ask you a foundation question of what does it mean to pair something?
Yeah, well, what it means is the two devices make a connection with each other so that they can communicate and exchange data.
Is there a date that the iPhone listed there made that connection and paired with the Bluetooth connected or embedded in?
Right here, you can see paired time, Friday, May 24th, 14:56:32, year 2019.
Is that paired or connected time?
That's the paired time, which means they connected to each other.
It connected to each other. Okay, that 14:56:32, 2019, is that UTC time or?
No, that is local time.
So military time, that would be 2:56, is that right?
Correct.
In the afternoon. How is a device able to connect to a vehicle infotainment center if the vehicle is off?
The infotainment system has to be powered on in order for the connection to be made. You can't connect if it's not powered, it doesn't have power.
How close does that phone or device have to be to the vehicle to make that connection?
Yeah, in my experience, the range for these things can be as much as 50 feet.
50 feet of the vehicle?
Yeah, the two devices have to be within 50 feet.
Now, this wasn't a new device. It only connected that day, correct?
Correct.
How do you know that?
These devices generally record the date of the initial or first pairing of the device, and then the last pairing of the device, are usually the two dates and times that we get. It looks like the paired time, which means the initial paired time, the first time it paired, was Thursday, July 5th of 2018.
And you don't know if this phone belonged to Jennifer Dulos? Do you?
I do not.
Do you know if it belonged to any of her children?
I do not.
And do you know if it belonged to Lauren Almeida? Do you even know who that is?
I don't know who that is.
Okay. Moving on to page 3, sir. Is there another device that actually was paired with the Chevy Suburban as well?
This is another Bluetooth device, and it shows a connection time Sunday, May 5th of 2019. And this is the unique Bluetooth MAC address for that particular cell phone.
And page 4. Are there other devices as well?
Yes, there's two more devices here on this page. You can see Jennifer Dulos iPhone 2. I don't see a connection time on that. There's one called Petros's iPad Bluetooth device.
And the last page, sir.
One called Petros's iPhone. And we have a connection time on that, Sunday, November 12th of 2017.
So suffice to say, these phones, you don't know if they were inside the vehicle or within 50 feet of the vehicle at the time that they were connected.
I mean, I can only testify to what the data tells me. The data tells me that a connection was made. It doesn't give me the distance the phone was from the device when it connected. That's not something that's recorded.
Thank you, sir. You can have a seat. If I may just have one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
I have nothing further. Thank you very much, sir.
Cross-examination, please.
Yes, sir. Morning.
Morning.
As I understand it, each infotainment system for different models is somewhat different. Is that a fair statement?
For each manufacturer, yeah.
Do Ford Motor Vehicles usually have a different manufacturer of their infotainment system than General Motors in your experience?
Yes.
So that the data that you might be able to extract from a Ford vehicle may be different in terms of quantity or even quality than what you might get from a Chevrolet model vehicle, correct?
Well, I would say different in terms of quantity. I'm not sure I know what you mean by quality.
Well, in terms of the types of data you might be able to recover.
Yeah, I guess in terms of, if you mean like what could be of value to an investigation, then yeah, absolutely.
In addition to that, as I understand your testimony, some vehicles overwrite their data quicker than other vehicles, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. If the data can be overwritten quickly, there's no way for us to know exactly how long data is going to be on a drive before it's overwritten.
You were asked a couple of questions about why some data might not be recoverable. Remember those questions?
I do, yeah.
And you mentioned corrupted sectors on the
Yes, there
on
were.
the chip, right?
Yes, there were some bad sectors on this chip, if we're talking about the Ford F-150 Raptor.
Right. Well, so that we all understand, because I'm trying to understand this. The chip is like, we're talking about a computer chip, right?
Yes, a memory chip. It's really similar to like flash memory, the type of memory you would get in like a USB data stick that we're all familiar with.
Yes.
Except instead of being in a removable stick like that, this piece of memory is physically soldered to a motherboard inside the system because it was never intended to be removed.
Do some vehicles allow the owner of the vehicle to turn off certain data for privacy reasons?
I'm not aware of too many. It's hard for me to answer that because you would have to go into if you go into the user interface of the infotainment system, there are options in there that can be changed.
Isn't
But-
I didn't mean to interrupt. I didn't know you were.
I'm not familiar with what the options are in every make and model of vehicle.
So for example, on your iPhone, you can put a phone in airplane mode, or you can turn off GPS location data, right?
Correct.
Don't some vehicles allow you to do that as well?
They may, I'm not aware of any.
Have you ever looked into it?
No.
And you also indicated that GPS data is spotty, I think is the word you used for the Ford Raptor, correct?
It's spotty in the sense that some timeframes are missing, yes.
Could I have the two exhibits, please? And when you say spotty, you mean there certain data is just missing, correct?
Correct.
You were not able to determine whether it was due to somebody intentionally deleting or turning off the data, or due to just insufficient memory or a glitch. You said it was a corrupted sector, right? You don't know.
Well, in terms of someone intentionally shutting off the GPS, I would expect the entire day to be missing if someone did that. I wouldn't expect to have, you know, random points of data from that day appearing.
Unless somebody intentionally turned it off and then turned it on again.
I guess I can't
It's
say.
possible, right?
I'm not sure if it's possible. I don't know. I would have to examine the Ford F-150 Raptor and its interface to see if there's even a setting for that. I'm not sure.
I'm just going to ask you about, well, before I put this on, I asked you a few questions during an earlier set of questions. Remember, I was asking about the map you prepared, correct?
I remember.
Yeah.
My memory's going, but it's not that bad yet.
And there's a red dot and a green dot, and then occasionally there looks like a light green dot that's different colors. Are these colors that you added, or was this in the infotainment system when you downloaded it?
Those are in the infotainment system.
And the red dot is where it stopped, the vehicle stopped? What does the red dot mean?
Generally, it means a different way that the data was collected. I had mentioned earlier, if you recall, that data can be collected as part of a vehicle track or as part of a vehicle event. And I believe that generally the red dots represent a vehicle event and the green dots represent from data from a track log. Or
And if they're both,
could be the other way around.
okay.
I have to check.
All right, so I'm going to ask you, and all of us aren't the greatest when it comes to Elmos here, so I'm just going to turn this on, I hope, unless it just needs, can we have this come on?
The cap.
Oh, the cap. Technology. All right. So I know that there's a zoom feature here that I've practiced with, so let me just zoom down a bit here. And I think it's autofocus, it should, all right. So when we're talking about, using this as an example, there's the red dot and then the green dot, correct?
Mhm.
That's a yes, right?
Yes, correct.
But you can't tell whether the data was from which source that created, this particular image, right?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but if it were critical for your case, I could go back and review the data and answer that question.
Well, I'm not going to ask you to do that now. So can one tell by just looking at this whether the vehicle moved from the red spot to the green spot or the green spot to the red spot during the time at issue here, which is,
If I recall correctly, it moved from the green spot to the red spot, but again, I would have to go back and review the data to confirm that. I didn't think it would be something that was relevant, so I don't recall it off the top of my head.
you also are aware, you know something about geolocation data, correct?
Yes, I read, being that I testify about it on occasion, I've read a few scientific papers about it.
So you know that there's somewhere between a 10 and a 15% accuracy differentiation for the location, the pinpoint location, right?
From
The object.
satellites?
Well,
From-
the,
yes.
He's showing
I'm-
on said 10 or 15%. Court does not know whether he meant percent or feet.
Oh, okay. Well, the pinpoint can be off up to, well, I can't do the math myself, so I'll just say that there is an accuracy rate of 85%, correct?
I'm not familiar with any study that reports that. If you could refer me to it, I would look into it. That sounds high to me.
Well, in any event, you said that the range, even within a, you're dealing with longitude and latitude, correct?
Correct.
And there's anywhere from, I think you said 16 to maybe what, 20 feet mobility area for that?
I said 16.
Exactly 16 feet?
I once read a paper that reported accuracy within 16 feet from satellite data.
But 16 feet is a circumference, correct?
Correct.
A circle,
16-foot radius
radius, well,
or a 16-foot circumference.
circumference, right. So the reason I ask that is I look at one of these. For example, on page, well, these pages aren't numbered, so I'll just refer you to the fact that at the top it says 5:03 to 5:05, and then it says, do you see that 5:38 to 6 p.m.? Do you see that there?
Mhm.
For the record, I'm going to have to ask you to say yes or no.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I see.
Okay. And if we look at this particular image, if this is Jefferson Crossing as it's identified, it shows a red dot here as being the location at the time of 5:38 to 6 p.m., correct?
That's correct.
On that date. If I look at the next page, rather the last page, second last page, you recognize this is still the same structure, the same house on Jefferson Crossing, right?
Yes, I believe it is. Yes.
Right, and it shows that there's some kind of movement from spot.
Yes, I
Green
remember
spot.
this one because I animated this track log. It went from the green dot to the red dot.
Yeah, but you do know that, are you familiar, did you ever look at a satellite image of this property?
I have not.
Because would this not, if I were to tell you that this is all lawn on this side of the house there, is it suggesting that that this vehicle drove onto the lawn to the side of the house?
I would say yes,
You would.
probably. Yeah.
All right, if it was 16 feet between there and let's say the corner of the house, might it just be that much inaccurate?
I don't believe so. And like I said, in my experience, and I've done a lot of these cases, and I've seen a lot of these GPS dots from this Ivy software substantiated in video surveillance evidence. And in my experience, it's been spot on. If you want to call an expert in here in terms of satellite GPS data and points, they could contradict that. That's up to you. But in my experience, I have no reason to believe the data is ever that inaccurate.
So if this is lawn over here, you're testifying that this truck at 8:14 p.m. drove onto the lawn of the side of the house, correct?
Yes, I am. I believe that probably happened.
While I'm on this page, I wanted to ask you, I'm going to turn this. You were asked questions about what these words mean and the track log data.
Mhm.
And you indicated adjusted means that you adjusted the time from what would be UTC or Greenwich Mean Time, London time, to local time in Farmington, Connecticut, correct?
Correct.
And and what is the EST? Does that mean you estimated it?
No, that means Eastern Standard Time.
So what would that do to your calculation since this was in Eastern Daylight Time?
Oh, yeah, you're right. That it was in Eastern Daylight Time, so EST is a mistake. It should have been EDT.
So you wrote this. This isn't data that came off the
No, that data came off the machine, but when I create the time change, it asks me to name it, and I mistakenly named it EST instead of EDT.
So it's not that the infotainment system has the wrong time, it's that you physically made an incorrect calculation, is what you're saying.
No, I'm not
And-
saying the calculation's incorrect. I'm
Entry.
saying that the S is a typo. It should be a D.
Oh, okay. Could you also, I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions about one of the other pages here, if I may, and I'm going to go to page. Two. And you can see this from where you're seated, right? You don't need to look at the screen behind you, correct?
That's correct. I can see it on the monitor.
So you indicated that this report on page 2 indicated that at May 24th, 2019, at 7:55 a.m., this vehicle was that the Ford Raptor was at a house located at 27 Spring Lane, Simsbury, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And again, I just want to be clear, the report didn't mention that 27 Spring Lane is a house. This is something you wrote, right?
Yes, I wrote that. That's correct.
Okay. And then the next one right below it, you see, says 9:53 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. It's at a house at 61 Sturbridge Hill Road. See that?
Yes.
So was there any data between 7:55 a.m. and 9:53 a.m. that you were able to recover?
No, I was not able to recover any data within that time frame.
And when you say from 9:53 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., was the data constant? That means every 5 minutes or every minute you were able to.
No, I believe there were, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, but
I believe there were 3 points of data in that time frame that had the vehicle in the same location.
can you tell me what those times data were?
Yes.
Or data times, excuse me.
They would be at the end of this document.
Okay,
Let's see, that started at what time? 9:50
9:53 a.m.
on 5/24.
Yes. Just tell me what page it's on so I could follow along.
I'm on the second to last page,
Second to last.
and I'm looking at the track log data at the bottom. And you can see that recovered item number 39 is the first one, and it shows a time range of 9:53 to 9:54. The second one is number 40, shows 12:21 to 12:22. And the third one is, shows a time frame of 12:30, 26 seconds to 12:30, 44 seconds. And those are the only 3 points of data from that Sturbridge Hill Road in New Canaan. Can you see that?
Yeah, I think that I was maybe on the wrong page when you did that. So let me just see if I understand. You're referring to, are you referring to the left column or the right column for that, or both?
If you
If you'd show the jury, please.
So the first one is recovered number 39, 5/24/19, 9:53 to 9:54. That data point shows on the map as that Sturbridge Hill in New Canaan.
That's one data point. or is
One
that-
data point.
Okay.
Number 40 is the second data point. It shows the same date, 12/21/53 p.m. to 12:22 p.m. Again, the exact same spot in Sturbridge Hill. Is it Sturbridge Hill Road?
Yes.
And then the last one right below that, number 41, 2019, 12/30/26 to 12/30/44. Some type of vehicle event happened that recorded that data spot. So I have 3 data spots recorded for that location on that day.
So do you have any way of knowing what happened between 9:54 a.m. and 12:21 p.m.?
I'm sorry, I do not have any way of knowing. I
So,
don't want to say, because
right,
I'd be speculating that that's not appropriate.
okay. So when you say in your report 9:53 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., you cannot testify that the vehicle was there that entire time, can you?
I cannot say with certainty that it was.
Now, the other thing I'm going to ask you about is this green dot is also showing the vehicle parked on in a lawn or and not on a driveway, correct?
Yeah, this is the map version. If I displayed this data in the satellite version so I could see more accurately, I can't see exactly where it's parked because there's a large tree canopy there that kind of covers it. But the driveway is the entire width of the house structure there. And it appears that the vehicle is parked just off the driveway surface in the satellite view.
And I'm just going to ask you, just hypothetically, if the person who said they were driving that vehicle indicated they always parked in the same spot on the driveway when they were down there, would that impact at all your estimate of whether or not that dot is off by as many as 15 or 16 feet?
I mean, in the satellite view, it shows it pretty close to the driveway surface, so it could be off by a few feet, but I don't think too many.
But in terms of whether or not it's showing this vehicle parked behind the house, not on the driveway, you can't say that that's pinpoint accuracy.
I definitely cannot say it's pinpoint accuracy.
Okay.
That's true.
Well, this is
And then-
probably the best time to take the morning recess. Ladies and gentlemen, we will stand in our morning recess, and please do not discuss the case. We can bring the jury in, please. So would counsel stipulate, please?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Newth, so that I understand correctly, the infotainment system does not run 24/7, whether the car's running or not, correct?
Correct. It's an electronic device. It needs power in order to run. So there needs to be power to it.
So you either have to, in most cars, that means turn the engine on, right?
Yeah, it's not necessarily to turn the engine fully on. You can turn the key so that it activates the battery and alternator and it will power up the system.
Now you're referring to older cars that actually have a key, right?
But yeah, that's true.
All right, so newer cars, you either, push a button to
Push the-
activate the car, or you can, I guess, put on, what they used to call it, an accessory to turn on the battery, so you listen to the radio or
Correct.
something like.
Yes. But there does have to be power to the system, which often means the engine needs to be started.
Right. And so when we're looking at the events and the times in your report, those are times when the engine had to be at least activated, if not turned on, correct?
Correct.
So according to your data and in your report, on May 24th, going back, 7:55 a.m. is when unless it was corrupted, that's the time that the car was turned on, or at least the power was given to the system, right?
Yeah, if I remember right, that was a gear shift vehicle event. I believe the car was shifted into gear.
So you're able to even tell what the car is doing when the system goes on?
If a vehicle event is recorded, you're able to tell.
Oh, okay. So then the next time there was an event was at 9:53 a.m. at Sturbridge Hill Road, correct?
Correct.
You don't know what that event was?
I believe it was shifted to Park,
Okay.
but you know what? I shouldn't say that. I would have to double check the data because I didn't save that.
You don't have
But
that
I-
with you, do you?
I don't think I have that with me. I would have to double check that for you. That's my recollection when I read this and put it together is that was a vehicle shift to Park. But I would have to I'd confirm that to be completely certain.
All right. If I'm to look at your last 2 pages of your report that has the, what I'll call the less visual data, right? The other times that you mentioned in the morning would require at that time at, let's say 9:53 a.m. you said was a shift to Park?
I believe it was, yeah, that was the arrival. I believe it was.
And then the car was engaged, or at least the power went on at 12:21 and 59 seconds, right?
Yes, something occurred at that time. I'm not sure what, but something occurred for the vehicle to record a data point.
Okay. When you say something, it means the power got turned on, right?
Yes, it could mean that.
Well, it couldn't happen while the car is off and somebody's out of the car, could it?
Yes, if there's no activity around the vehicle and the vehicle's powered down, it won't record a data point.
And of course, you checked to see if there were any recorded activities from, I think, 12:33 to the next one you indicated was at 4:21. This is Interstate 84, is it not here, the curve?
Yes,
in Plainville, heading near Farmington, correct?
correct. And there, to answer your question, no data points were recovered between those two timeframes.
I see, but this one shows a red dot and a green dot traveling. Can you tell from your map which direction the vehicle's going or no?
If, I believe the vehicle is going, if I recall, from the green dot in the lower part of the picture to the red dot in the upper corner.
between you as
A
well?
wall with a closed door, yes.
How long does the vehicle store the Bluetooth data?
In terms of the connected devices, I don't believe that that gets marked for deletion unless someone manually goes in and deletes it.
So it can go back, we call them event times listed at the top. 4 o'clock at night, driving on.
Now, you mentioned a couple terms. I'm going to ask you to define them a little bit if you can. You just mentioned extraction.
Not necessarily, but it does help. It's useful to have. So we try our best to get it when possible.
10, 12.
Yes.